What's up, YouTube? Capital G here. Now we're going to talk about the effects on the meta of no priority. First things first, this no priority, I guess, ruling or restructure of rules for the TCG, European, North American card game. This goes into effect right now. So this will be in play for YCS Chicago, and I know that there are a lot of people trying to scramble together new decks, trying to figure out how things are going to work. I'll talk about YCS Chicago probably tomorrow, but yeah, I'm going to talk about how the meta game is going to be affected going forward. And again, this goes into effect immediately. First off, the best deck of the format, Dino Rabbit, is not really debatable. At least it wasn't debatable until today. Dino Rabbit is still going to be a very good deck. It still probably will be tier 1. I can't really guarantee that. If you try and guarantee it's still going to be tier 1, you're dumb. You're being way too blind. At least let there be a major tournament before you say that. I will say this, though. It's still definitely going to be a viable deck. The problem with the deck is the two most powerful plays the deck has have been severely hurt by the new ruling. Now, first off, people have started saying, oh, you can't affect Veiler Dino Rabbit because it banishes itself. No. Let's clear that up right now. You can still activate, you can still pay the cost of Dino Rabbit. You just won't get shit. It's like how if you summon Debris Dragon and you get Card Trooper, you can still pay the cost of milling cards. You just don't get any effect. Or the same thing as if you get you summon Debris Dragon and you get a Lone Fire Blossom. You can still pay Lone Fire Blossom's cost to kill itself, to tribute something. You just won't get any type of effect. So yeah, you can still banish your Rescue Rabbit. You just ain't getting no effect. So you're just doing yourself in. So that's something that, don't try and, think you're cute and try and get around. All right, so the two biggest plays that Rescue Rabbit has been hurt. First off, that's the turn 1 Rescue Rabbit. The effect that pretty much if you didn't have Maxi, it was unstoppable. Like your opponent just got a 2400 Solemn Judgment that you really couldn't do anything about, and then they would just simplify the game state and went off of that. Now your opponent can go summon Rescue Rabbit, and they have to ask before they activate his ignition effect, do you have a response? So now you can use something like Effect Veiler, and guess what? Yeah, you went neg 1, but they have a rabbit on the field that's just sitting there. Now you can Dark Hole that rabbit. So let's say you had that Dark Hole. Instead of, having to use it against Logia to waste their negate, now if you can't push through for damage like they warning your monster, you can Dark Hole the rabbit, and, they're still stuck at... They're back where they started from. You went neg from the turn, but they don't have a Logia plus you went neg, so you're in a much better position. The second thing is the whole, if they have like a rabbit already banished going Tour Guide Levier, that play is significantly hurt too. Because now you can use something like Evac Device, you can use Book of Moon, you can use Bottomless, you can use a whole bunch of different effects. It's not just, you either have Maxi, Veiler, or you lose. There's a whole lot of different effects or different cards now that don't negate effects, but you can now use them to make sure that they won't get that Levier playoff. So again, I think Rabbit is still going to be a good deck, but its two most powerful plays have been severely crippled. I mean, there is no way around that. I would say it's going to be somewhere between tier 2 and tier 1 for the rest of the format. I think it could be moving closer to tier 2. Light Pulsar deck or Chaos Dragons. This is a deck that has been extremely hurt by the no priority. I think this deck has been hurt just as much as Rabbit has, honestly. Here's why. Because first off, and I played against this deck with Heroes. It is a nightmare matchup. It's so hard to beat this deck with Heroes, and it just got a lot more winnable. First off, all your Chaos monsters, your Chaos Sorcerers, your BLSs, guess what? They don't have priority anymore, so I can Book of Moon them without losing my monster, or I can Bottomless Trap Hole them without losing my monster. Secondly, your Red Eyes Metal Darkness plays, where you'll banish a dragon, then use Red Eyes Metal, and then be like, priority to get Light Pulse. Nope, that shit don't exist no more. Now I can just Torrential it. Now I can Bottomless it. In fact, Bottomless Trap Hole is just ridiculously strong against this deck now, because it kills all your Chaos monsters, you get no plus. It kills your Red Eyes, you get no plus. It banishes your Light Pulsar Dragon, you get no plus. If you try and get slick and, drop Judgment Dragon on me, I can TT Bottomless that, you get no plus. Like, do you understand that TT and Bottomless now just absolutely wreck this deck when before they really didn't do that much against this deck now? In addition, it's just like the deck it lost a lot of its power. Its big monster drop power is it's significantly hurt now. There's really no way around that. Next deck, Insectors. Insectors are a deck that aren't hurt at all. Like I said before, they only got priority to equip their monsters with things like Gigamantis or Hornet. that doesn't really change because they didn't get priority to launch their monster. They just got priority to equip. So if you have Book of Moon, you have Evac, you have things like that to stop them Gemini Spark, Hero Blast, it doesn't really change anything. So I don't really need to spend much time on this deck. I just think if the Rabbit matchup was hard for them, but if it was, you know, in some cases winnable, it just got a fuck lot easier. Like now, no one out there can say, you know, like they're not at least on equal ground as Dino Rabbit in a direct matchup. I would think that in a direct matchup, they're not going to have the edge now. Dino Rabbit before, you know, it wasn't, they couldn't beat the match. It's like you get Doka and just win. But now, this deck was already packing 3 copies of Effect Veiler for mirror matches and everything else. Now, those 3 copies of Effect Veiler aren't garbage against the Rabbit matchup. Now, they're ridiculously good. So, again, I think that pendulum has swung, and I now think that Insectors are better than Rabbit. So, we may be looking at the best deck of the format. Here's a deck that, again, it's not going to be affected at all by the no priority. I mean, there are a few obscure rulings that might change or that might hurt. Like for instance, if you Miracle Fusion for the Great Tornado, your opponent can bottomless it before you get to activate its effect. Stratos is a trigger effect. In fact, Stratos is just about the only effect that the deck will use every single game. Stratos is trigger, so it's always going to work. You still have priority on that, like for all intents and purposes, even though the term priority doesn't exist anymore. It's just a term I still use. Stratos is a trigger effect, so even if your opponent changed something to it, you still get to use it. You know, none of the other monsters have ignition effects, so it's not really going to matter. You know, stuff like the Shining, those aren't ignition effects. Ab-Zero, you know, maybe a couple of their fusion cards that they don't use that much, like Gaia and Great Tornado, are affected, but not really. And plus, this deck already had a very good matchup against Dino Rabbit. Now it just got easier because you can maybe tech in some Effect Veilers, because the Insector matchup can be dicey, but now those instead of just having Effect Veiler for one matchup, now it works against a couple of matchups. So I think that this is a deck where, you know, you could be looking at it taking over Rabbit's spot in that tier 1. Maybe not taking over Rabbit's spot, but just, you know, being able to consistently beat Rabbit easily. And then Wind-Up's aka Dead Deck, is that, I think that's what we can call it. This, I'm sorry, there is no way about it. This deck is fucking dead. This is the only card that really ever mattered in the deck. Wind-Up Carriers and Mighty, aka Battleship. I'm kind of mad. I wish I would have topped with this deck before it got killed by the no priority. But basically, if you play against Wind-Up, there's only one card you actually need to care about. That's this. That's Mighty. Now, Mighty is oh my goodness. There's so many things that can wreck this card now. It's like the deck already auto-lost to Max C, which people stopped playing because it's like everybody and their mama lost respect for Wind-Up. But now you're talking about Bottomless, which is a card that's going to see hella more play, now shuts down this deck. I mean, Bottomless doesn't hit anything in the deck except Shark, except for all the cards that they want to build up to, or they want to build up to Mighty, which is the only card you care about, which that gets hit by Bottomless, and it's just like, oh, it's dead. Now if you torrential it, oh, it's dead. If you evac it, they didn't do it. You know, they don't get any effect. They Book of Moon it, or you Book of Moon it, it's dead. I mean, it's like, I don't know. The deck really only had one colossal power play, and now basically everything stops that colossal power play. So I don't understand how viable Wind-Ups can be if their biggest play is now open to basically everything. At least before, it was like, if you didn't have Maxi or Fiendish Chain, they had very good chances of being able to beat you. But now it's like every single trap in the game basically shits on Wind-Up Carriers and Mighty. And I don't really think that Wind-Up players are going to want to have to deal with all of that. I think they should just jump into another deck. So, you know, I know that there's probably a couple of decks that I missed. Things like Dark World aren't really, they're not affected by priority at all. They're just like heroes. You know, Torgad's a trigger effect, so she's not affected at all. But let me know what you guys think about the format and how this might affect YCS Chicago. Thanks for watching.